This is Michael Mirdad. Thanks for joining us for another evening of Spiritual Insights with Michael Mirdad. Today we're talking about how to forgive. A lot of folks have been asking, how to forgive. And there's lots of questions, lots of variables. How do I forgive if it's a long-term issue? How do I forgive if it's someone close to me? Specifics like that. So, it's a little funny because each person thinks they have their one thing that can't be forgiven or that's challenging, but it's different from somebody else's. And in a sense, they all end up the same at the end of the day. Anything can be forgiven. First of all, there's nothing greater than the power that we are in our divinity. And it's our divinity that forgives, not our humanness. If your humanness tries to forgive, that means I'm a human person. First of all, by definition, human, I'm a limited being. A human being dies. A spiritual being does not. So by definition, I'm a spiritual being, really. The human being is limited. Therefore, human attempts to forgive are, weak at best. They're weak. They're just, you're really scratching at anything you can get out of it. Like, I have to forgive. I have to forget. I got to make myself forget that this happened. None of that really works. I must forgive this person, and yet it's almost painful to try. That's not real forgiveness. It's better than nothing. Any form of forgiveness is at least moving in the right direction. But there are all kinds of false versions of forgiveness. I say false, any version is better than nothing, but at some point we have to evolve beyond the more simple, the more shallow versions of forgiveness. So we have to get past things like, time heals. Time does not heal. Pick up a watch, put it to any ailment, arthritis, and see if it heals it by sticking time to the arthritis. It does not heal. If you know me, I'm a bit silly and irreverent this way, but I make fun of stupid things. So time does not heal. What time does is it gives you time to gradually forget something happened, which does not mean it's forgiven. It's sort of just not thought about as much anymore. That's not forgiveness. And if you're watching this and you really want to be sincere about forgiveness, then, we have to really look at the authentic pieces. We're looking at how to truly forgive, how to forgive your ex, how to forgive your, even the victim within, how to forgive abusers. And there's a lot of really deep concepts that we have to wrap our mind around. If we're really, really deep, dense, three-dimensional beings, then the multidimensionality of forgiveness will not really set in. So if that's all you can do, that's better than nothing. You just start off with, I really want to set the intention to forgive. I'm going to do my best to say prayers of forgiveness, Just be careful not to say, God, please fix this with this person, because God's going to say, great. That would be you forgiving them. So you don't really go to sleep and tell God to fix. God has already forgiven everything. So it's not God that needs to forgive, it's us. Mankind makes the errors, mankind makes the judgments, and so on. So it's mankind that has to practice the forgiveness. So just be careful not to, inadvertently project that onto God. Everybody gets tempted at it once in a while, but just, do your best not to go that route, because it's not going to help. So let's first, address how the wounds even happen. And then we can go into forgiveness. So what are we trying to forgive again? Betrayal, wounds, sadness, loss. There's all kinds of things, essentially. The list can be very long. The list could be 100 things for one person. But what are we really trying to forgive? We're trying to forgive something that hurt. If it didn't hurt, if it didn't bother us, we wouldn't even think we need to forgive it. Something hurt. Something felt off. We were betrayed. We were accused wrongly. We were harmed in some way, abused. And so a lot of forgiveness really has to do with this person or event did not fit what I would have liked it to be. And that really compounds our hurts. Even if our hurts were like on a Richter scale of 0 to 10, a 2, it would compound it to a 6 just because it didn't fit what we wanted. In other words, if a stranger called you a name, it might hurt a little. If a loved one called you a really yucky name, man, it really hurts a lot more. You know, if a person you barely know sort of betrays you, an acquaintance, it hurts. When the person you love and trust the most does it, it hurts a lot. So why is there a difference? Simply because the person did not meet what we had hoped from them. And that's why often you'll hear people say a lot of forgiveness really is forgiving ourselves. So sometimes it's healthy to say, you know, yeah, I'm really mad at so-and-so and I'm wanting to sit and extend forgiveness to this. But it's also really wise and very powerful and very responsible to say, and gosh, I think I need to include myself in this because I have to say that there's probably some levels of anger I feel, frustration I feel, because maybe they didn't meet what I had hoped them to be. I wanted my dad to be Superman. I wanted my mom to be, you know, a wonderful goddess. I wanted my brothers and sisters to be this or that. I wanted my partner to be one and only. And I'm angry because we ended in a divorce. You know, but a lot of times the relationship was over a long time ago, and we hang in there until they do something or we do something horrible. Then they get mad and they have a hard time forgiving, but it was already over anyway. So we really have to forgive ourselves because we are part of the problem. We were part of the ones that prolonged it. Just giving, you know, an example at this point. So that's one thing to consider, is that we play a part in a lot of this. So forgiving ourselves is essential. There's a saying that I'm not going to repeat verbatim because I just want to give you a concept about this, but it is, we start off forgiving others. They did that, they did this, they did that, you know, on and on, they, he, she, and so on. As we grow, and if you want to know if you're truly growing spiritually, there's people that think they're really spiritual, and it's because they read books or something cool like that. They thought they heard voices, so that's what they think makes them spiritual. Forgiveness is number one, and if you could argue that, it's in the top 3 things that determine how spiritual you are. Far above how many books you read, how many classes you did, your ability to practice forgiveness. And forgiveness starts with me talking about others. So if I'm talking about others, I'm only in the infant stages of forgiveness. And if forgiveness determines whether I'm quote unquote spiritual or not, and I'm still in the infant stages of this, it speaks a lot. It speaks volumes about where I'm really at. So people that, you know, want to act real cosmic and they're, wow, you know, I'm channeling 15th dimensional beings. That's nice. How you doing with forgiveness? Because forgiveness makes you an ascended master. Forgiveness clears you of karma and so forth. Not channeling. I don't care how high the being is. You could just have a really screwed up energy system that makes you open like open antenna to all kinds of beings. That doesn't make you enlightened. It doesn't mean you're done with this 3rd dimensional lesson. What makes us done with the hard lessons of life is primarily forgiveness. And again, if you're in the stages, if someone says, oh man, I'm really cosmic, but they keep still talking about other people, that's how you kind of catch yourself. If you find yourself going, they, and they, and they, I would have a great day if only they, and I would have more of this if only they, you know, I would have had a better life if only. It's understandable. I'm not saying we should call them out on it. I'm not saying we should shame them for it. I'm saying I have seen even students of mine and teachers I've known and so on who can't get past that piece. But this is interesting, not just the negatives, they, because that's fundamental stage of forgiveness when we're still talking about them. But there's another way we talk about them that shows we're unhealed. When we say, they are so amazing and I'm not. I wish I had what they have. I wish I had their beauty. I wish they had this. I had this and that of them. They're still a they we're talking about, except it's praise instead of criticisms or hurts. And the praise still means we're talking about others, which means you're still not clear. Because we want to forgive people not only for what they've done to us, but we have to forgive them for looking like they have something we don't have. All in all, we have to let everyone off the hook. Can we always do that easily? No, it's really a progress. It's a process, and we get better and better at it. But is it on your Christmas list? Is it up there on your Christmas list besides a car and a boyfriend and a girlfriend and this and whatever? Is it on the top of your list to say, God, my mom's buying me this, my brother's buying me that, my girlfriend's buying me this, my partner, whatever, my friends gifted me something. Is it on your list to also say, and one thing I want is not something they can give me. One thing I'm asking for, God, is the ability to forgive. Download this to me. I'm open. I'm scared, but I'm open. And so download this gift to me. Because if you have the gift of forgiveness under the tree, so to speak, which really means in your heart and soul, if you have the gift of forgiveness, you really will be able to manifest anything else. It's amazing. People underestimate the power of forgiveness. So the fundamental stage is when you're still forgiving others, but at least you're trying to forgive them. So even if it's fundamental stages, we're on our way, at least moving. The second level of forgiveness is when you're not talking about others, but when you start to recognize yourself. For example, if I've been betrayed 15 times, I can stop and say, wow, I wonder who the common denominator is. Oh, that's right, me. Wow, I need to forgive myself for believing that I was so unimportant or that I was so little in meaning and value that I needed to experience such lessons. See, forgiving myself. I just can't believe this person did this to me. Well, I got to forgive them, but I also have to forgive myself because they did that and I'm angry about it. But I let them trigger me off my center. So I need to forgive them, but I also have to forgive myself because I'm mad at myself for getting off center. I'm mad at myself for feeling weak enough to let somebody do that to me, to being susceptible, and so on and so on. So forgiving ourselves. And of course, there's more obvious things we forgive ourselves for, like harms we've done to others, harms we've done to ourselves. I went out with that person I knew I shouldn't, and things went poorly. I'm mad at them, but I'm also mad at myself. I knew I shouldn't have done that, that kind of a thing. So look at it this way, and it's an amazing time to be talking about this because whether you're at an crossroads in your life or whether you look at it, say for example, it's the end of a lunar cycle or at the end of a year or the end of a season, all of these become very auspicious times to say, I think it's time to move things away, drop things to a new level. So, it's about forgiveness. So the first stage is forgiving others. The second stage is really about forgiving ourselves. And the third and wonderful stage is when you have forgiven others and self. And you don't have to do one and then another. You can work on both at the same time. Typically, we do work on both at the same time. But when we have worked on those two, all of a sudden we start to realize, well, wait a minute. If all others, which is everything outside of me, other people and events, are forgiven or I'm moving in that direction really well, and I've forgiven myself, which is inside of me, what's left? You look around and, no, there's nobody left. A great story of this would be the example of one prostitute being caught in the time of Jesus, being caught and charged with being a prostitute. And they typically would stone them to death. So they figure, okay, we're going to stone this woman to death. But then they figure, let's use this as a way of tripping Jesus up. Because he's a wonderful master, man, And they figured, this guy's getting away with too much. He's getting a little too popular. So we want to trip him up. We want to cause harm to those who are changing the world. That's kind of the way the ego leadership of the world works. So it says, let's get rid of this guy. So we'll question him. Hey, Jesus, this person's been caught in prostitution. So what do you say? Mr. Master of Peace and Love. What do you think? Because if he says stoner, according to the law, stoner, then he's going to breach his own ethics that he's been preaching about love and forgiveness. On the other hand, if he says, no, don't stone her, they're going to say, you're breaking the law, because they went by the Mosaic law. So they would say, you broke the law, and now they would have a reason to stone him. End of ministry, right? So They ask him, and he brilliantly doesn't play their game. He instead asks them a question. You're absolutely right. Gosh, according to the law, yeah, she's supposed to be stoned to death. Of course, you have to convict her first. So to convict her, you have to be clear enough to judge her as a sinner. And then, yes, by all means, let's stone her. Anybody here clear enough to do that? And they're like, crap. Because most of them were sleeping with her anyway. So it's like, oh crap, So they walk away. And in one of the versions of the story, as each one would walk up to him, they noticed he was writing. They walked up to look. And as each one looks over his shoulders, he's writing what they themselves did to keep them not being clear enough to judge this woman. So he was probably just writing the dates and times that they rendezvoused with her. Anyway, so, they're realizing, wow, this guy is really weird, man. This guy's on to us. So let's just get out of here. Now, the woman, in the meantime, you have to remember the terror. She's curled up waiting for the rocks to start hitting. She can't even hear the conversations they're having. She's expecting to be brutally murdered. And he walks up to her. Hey there, excuse me. She, shockingly kind of thinks, what, bad things are going to happen, right? He says, it's okay. Calm down. You're okay. And she's surprised and like, how? What happened? He says, where are your accusers? She looks around and says, they're gone. And then he says, don't look at me. And then what? What he means is they're gone and it isn't me either. So the outers are gone. One more person for you to look at, yourself. And if you can find yourself sinless, guiltless, fearless, regretfulless, then you're done. That's forgiveness. So he says, look around. Do you see anybody? No. Then it's up to you. Now go and sin no more. And that's a tricky one. Because go and sin no more means kind of like it's the word repentance. It means when something's been done. And I remember this even as a kid. If somebody, wronged me and they said, oh, I'm really sorry. And a lot of people say that gratuitously. Even as a kid, I would say, well, if you mean it, then just don't do it again. And, some people would be like, oh, well, no problem. Other people would almost get angry at that. Well, now you screwed up my plans to do it again later, What an inconvenience. But that's what that means. Go and sin no more. It means as soon as you're forgiving something, don't judge it again. As soon as you're forgiving someone, try not to go into the judgment again. As soon as you're trying to heal something, try not to go back into the old pattern of it, whatever it happens to be. If you're healing and doing, whether it's shamanic soul retrieval or breath work, and you are releasing something, don't let yourself go back to it. Now, it's going to be tempting. There's going to be moments when pieces of it come up, and it doesn't mean pretend those aren't there. It means don't let them become the power again. So if you feel the tears, cry them. If you feel the anger, beat on a pillow. Not vent, not take stuff out on people, but also not to let people take their stuff out on you. And so if other people say to you, hey, I'm really sorry. And if they don't, you must still choose to forgive. And I'll come back to that likely, but especially if people are, trust me on this, most people don't apologize and make amends. So if anybody ever does, damn, grab hold of it, man. Thank them. Say, oh my God, how rare are you? How rare are you? Thank you. What an amazing person you are to even say you're sorry. And I mean it sincerely, you're saying to them, thank you and God bless you. That makes it all the more easy for me to feel peace. You see? Beautiful. Credit them. And the people that don't, they're the majority. So let's not forgive them. Well, no, that's not a good idea, because if you imprison them with your judgment and their own judgments, then you're imprisoned with them because you're karmically hooked to them. So what you want to do instead is remember this, and I've said this many times. I wrote a book called The Book of Love and Forgiveness. The Book of Love and Forgiveness, because it's so simple, it's so clear. But in there, one of the things that I share is such a simple technique. So simple. And it summarizes everything. Refuse to hate anyone. Well, they did really, really horrible, disgusting things, I know. and I'm sorry. I wish they hadn't done that, but they did. So I'm sorry that they did that. Now let's try not to hate them, because then you're going to be karmically hooked to them. Do you want that? No, I don't. Okay, so let's just choose not to hate them. And if you hate them, it kind of means whoever you are, you have power over me. Don't not do that because you want to spite them. I'm going to not hate you to spite you. Don't do that. Do it because I don't need to hate you. What you've done has determined who you are, and that's your thing. Who I am is determined by my choices. My choice to forgive means I am as God created me. Your choice to cause harm means you believe that you're not what God created you to be. But you're actually wrong. You're not anything other than God created you to be. So you're actually having an hallucination. You're having a bad dream, you the abuser. So do I want to hate you for having a bad dream? Well, yes, because what you did was horrible. Okay, if my own child had a bad dream, a nightmare, would I want to hate them for that? Well, of course not. That's different. It is not different. If someone is acting up in this world, and there are horrible things that people do, but when they act up, I have to not hate them, because what they're doing is not their real self. It's part of their dream, their nightmare, that they are something other than God created. Do you really believe they would do those things if they knew who they were in God's eyes, in God's light, in God's image? No, of course not. You can't be in God's image and do ridiculous things like that. So those are people that have amnesia. Their behaviors are inexcusable, but they have amnesia. And so we want to just, refuse to hate them. I didn't say, oh, love them. Picture the two of you wrapped up in a heart on Valentine's Day, and I love you, ex-partner who did all kinds of horrible things to me and my children. Oh, I love you and forgive you. It's no problem. That's all lying to yourself. We don't need that. I'm asking you just to say, I refuse to hate them. I really, really am having a hard time with it. You can be honest. I don't like what they did, and it hurts me to even think about it, but I refuse to hate them. Show some strength. Secondly, whatever they did, right or wrong, good or bad, whatever they did. Question number 2, point number 2, what can I learn from this? What can I learn? And I don't mean just really linear things, like if somebody abused a family member of yours, you say, well, from now on, the family member should never go out of the house. That way we'll all be safe. That's really, really grossly limited and not practical, but it's linear. So what do you want to do? You want to say, well, what can I learn from this? Okay, maybe I need to, if it's a relationship that went wrong, maybe I need to pace myself and make sure I know people, instead of jumping in compulsively to a relationship. Even things like, my health is really bad and I never really exercised. I could just have a practical answer and say, I really recognize a lesson I can learn is to love myself. Loving myself to the point where I deserve to exercise and get fresh air. Feels great. Those kinds of things, lessons. And there's all kinds of deep and less deep lessons. But learn everything you can from it, because that's what a master does. Masters don't go, oh gosh, I regret this. There was nothing I can learn from this whatsoever. Masters can extract wisdom out of anything. Even some of the most horrid experiences we can extract from anything. So make it a point. What can I learn from this? And if you can only extract one thing, great, man, give yourself some credit for that. So I refuse to hate. I look at what I can learn from this. Absorb that. Just only one more step. The third is, no matter what they've done, who they were, I'm affirming that somewhere in that person is a spark of light made in God's image, and I release them to find it. Now, that may sound hard, but it's not that hard. I can pick up a rock and say, it's just a dense rock. I've known people that are just about as dense as this rock, maybe even denser. Sometimes that's their behavior. But I can look at this dark, dense rock and still say, isn't that funny? Somewhere inside of you, cold, dark rock, I can still affirm that somewhere inside of you is a light made in God's image. Am I wrong? No, it's the truth. There's a spark of light in every particle in the universe. So you can actually accurately say that and not be, being flippant about it. Am I, saying that it's always easy? No. But the reason it's not going to be easy sometimes is because you're pissed off. You're going to say, I'm not affirming that that person has light. That's like a no. I refuse. Now here's what you've done. You refused to see light in them, but you also affirmed there's no light in you. Now you live in darkness. And I'm not saying you should do this just so you don't live in darkness, because that would be selfish. But if that's all you can do, start there and affirm. No, you know what? I'm abused, but I still have a spark of light in me. They're an abuser and they still have a spark of light in them. You're allowed to go so far as to say, do I see the spark of light? Hell no. You're allowed to have attitude about it. Hell no. You can have attitude and talk to God, man. God, I just want you to know, this has to be the most challenging person on the planet. I cannot believe that there's even an ounce of light in them. I can't see it. And I don't, just in case, FYI, God, in case you need some feedback, I can get some signed petitions, but just letting you know in case you missed this, oh Lord, a lot of people agree this person has no light in them whatsoever. God's not fazed by it at all, your opinion. God's going to say, oh, and the more people you can get on your list of people to hate them, to dislike them, or to think that that person lacks light, the more people you can get on the list are adding to your karma of people you have pulled off their center into hatred. How are you feeling? Now you're an abuser of maybe more people than that person abused. How does that feel? You see? It's not worth it. God, it's so simple. Refuse to hate, learn what you can, and then affirm the love, the light in everyone. Just a spark of light, and then you're good. It makes a huge difference. So what if the person is never going to change? Well, I'll forgive them, but they're never going to change. Well, wait. Now you're trying to be a control freak again. I think you should go do some forgiveness on yourself for being a control freak. But what if they never change? It's not your business. You're not affirming their goodness and refusing to hate them on the condition of them changing. No, forgive. Ideally, people will repent, which means they apologize and make amends. They say, I'm sorry, and they're trying to clear it. And don't ever refuse, man. If you can, please try to never refuse someone that wants to say, I'm sorry. I've said this many times in my life. Man, anyone that could say they've ever thought, said, or done anything to me and said, I want to ask your forgiveness, they don't even have to ask twice. They probably don't even have to finish the sentence, because as far as I'm concerned, it's already done. I don't feel a lot of animosities. Sometimes I feel a little like more like a sadness that people are the way they are, but I'm healing, like all people. Every day that we're on earth, there's lessons of that healing. But there are things, and I want to say one quick aside about forgiveness. Even if you become adept at forgiving people more quickly, like things happen and I'm really good at starting to forgive more quickly. If you got that down, that's great. Of course, your soul's going to say, don't forget, we got some history to work on too. So you start working on that. Bam, bam, bam. Working on the history. When you have cleared enough, then there's another layer. You go from the healing of your stuff with other people and your own self. Then all of a sudden you start working on the collective consciousness. Just earlier this week, I remember a certain incident arose and I saw it and I felt the tears and I felt the feelings, about it. And I realized this is related to, the people that drag people off to war and sometimes they never come back. Those people have partners, they have children. It's just one of the more screwed up things on planet Earth, because warmongers, they're not the ones fighting the wars. You might remember if you're a music buff, if you like some of the old good rock music, the band Black Sabbath, they had a song called War Pigs. And even though people thought those guys were like into the dark occult kinds of things, they wore crosses for a reason. They said, we're speaking up against the dark things of this world. And we wear crosses to protect ourselves because they came from very fundamental religion. Catholicism and things of the like. And so they were superstitious and they thought we have to protect ourselves because they sang songs like that, war pigs, saying, it's not them that go off to war. They send other people off to war. And, and these guys, when they're singing this, they believed purely, like the old word, man, they believed in God and the devil, and that the devil tries to screw with people, and that the war pigs of the planet are controlled by the devil. So that's what they sang about. And they believed, wow, if we're going to sing about stuff like this, we better kind of protect ourselves, So, it's like that. It's I've seen that, and I've seen, how sad, man, just the children not seeing a parent for a year and a half at a time. And these people, going off to war, serving, and sometimes getting drafted or sometimes just registering and all that. But the idea of not coming home to your kids, it's kind of horrible. But also abuses to children. But see, let me clarify this now. Abuse of any kind is not good. I don't care if it's to an older person, a middle-aged person, a young person. And how do you define abuse? Everybody's got a little different definition. Some are more clinical and linear and intellectual. Here's Michael Mirdad's definition of abuse. Anytime you are not feeling the presence of love, you're feeling abused. If you're not feeling love's presence, then something's not right. That means you're feeling scared, you're feeling abused, you're feeling neglected. Something is not right if you're not feeling the presence of love and safety, peace, God words. If you're not feeling the presence of God, you're likely feeling abused. Subtly or majorly, overtly, covertly, there's a form of abuse. It's not just always when someone does some horrible thing to you. Even when you just feel sad that you're missing someone, that's an abuse, because in God, those people are not separate from us. But in this dimension, we think they are separate, and we feel hurt, and hurt abuses us. And I'm not saying it's on purpose. I'm not saying we're always conscious, but these are forms of abuse. So cry them when you need to cry them, scream them into a pillow when you need to scream them into a pillow. But no, you'll go from working on your issues to our issues, because we have global, collective issues, such as abandonment. There's not just your abandonment. There's also ours. You think your abandonment's heavy. You think your betrayals are heavy. Yeah, man, mine's really bad. Someone did really something horrible. Really, tune into the collective one. Try that on for size, because that one, when you tune into the collective traumas of the world, you will feel so overwhelmed almost instantaneously, you'll want to spontaneously combust. And it's why some people take their own lives, because they're so sensitive. They can feel the vibes out there of the world that's not right, not the God world. It's the ego-based world. And they become overwhelmed with it. And it is overwhelming. There are times when I know all the rules, I do all this stuff, and there's times when I can feel the sinking because of stuff. You see it, and it potentially triggers. But the point to it, the goal for me or any of us, is to say, I got it. I totally got it. I'm sinking into this, and this is an important lesson. So if I just sink into it, I sort of missed my opportunity. And maybe it's kind of like saying, instead of graduating 5th grade, I'm going to get set back a year on the course called forgiveness, I get set back because I flunked, as they used to call it. I flunked my grade in practicing forgiveness. I started believing in the power this world has when I started getting overly hurt, sad, angry, confused, oppressed by government and whatever else it might be. I missed that. Oops, my bad. And if you try to do any forgiveness at all, but if you try to get to collective levels of forgiveness without tethering yourself to God, forget it. You might as well just forget it. You're going to fail. Any form of forgiveness as a human is going to fail. Or it's going to be fake and you'll think it's real. But all true forgiveness must be done with God, because true forgiveness is spiritual forgiveness. So, I pray this is making sense, but even if someone says they'll never change, it's something we've got to say. That doesn't matter. I'm forgiving them on a spiritual level. I'm not forgiving humanly. So my human self does not need to sit around waiting for their human self to change. See, that's when you're subtly still being controlled by your ego. So The question comes up from many people, well, how do you finally let go? See, once again, if you're going to try to control, I'm going to let go 20% today, like it's a valve you open. It's not real. You're trying to control it still. So how do I truly let go? First, connect with God in your forgiveness process. And second, set your heart on it. Do you really want to forgive? Yes, I do. Why? Ask yourself a couple questions. Why do you want to forgive? Because I have to. Wrong answer. Because I'm supposed to. Wrong answer. Because God won't be happy with me if I don't. Wrong answer. So I don't have bad karma and have to come back again. Wrong answer, although it's true. I guess I need to get to a place where it's the right thing to do. It just seems like it's the only right thing. It seems like it brings that person release and peace. It brings me release and peace. Wow, I think I can do that. Just talk yourself through some of this. Because the letting go won't be happening if it's not authentic. It will not be happening if it's not authentic. So ask yourself a couple questions. And you know what? Please remember this. If your answers are no, like, no, it isn't real. No, I don't really want to forgive, but I have to. Don't be ashamed of that, because you're still at least starting the movement of it. So just say that. Say, you know what? You can have attitude when you talk to God. Trust me on this. God, on a 0 to 10 scale, I know you want me to forgive them. To a 9 or 10, no, I refuse. I'm so hurt. I'm so pissed. Whatever. Say whatever. Cuss it out, whatever. And say, no. You know what, God? I'm going to give them a 1. I'm going to give them 1 fraction of a bit of forgiveness today. Excellent. God's like, hey, guess what, everyone? We got an ounce of forgiveness out of that stubborn person. I'm joking, but it's good. It's really healing. It's beautiful. Because I promise you, when you get that 1 happening, your soul's going to start saying, I wonder what 2 feels like. And so on. So you get the ball rolling and it starts to unfold. And that's how forgiveness leads us to feeling peace. Forgiveness leads us to a peace that surpasses understanding. Here's why. Because forgiveness is a state of consciousness that is beyond understanding. So forgiveness brings peace that's beyond understanding, because forgiveness is beyond understandable, humanly speaking. The human head does not comprehend forgiveness, because the human head goes, wait, let's see how this works. Chronologically, they did this to me, and for no good reason. Which means I'm a victim and they're a victimizer. So let's see, ergo, there's no real reason to forgive them. So I'm not going to. So we're looking for, give me some understandable reasons why I should. But if you already still believe in the chronological story, you can't truly forgive, because you're already saying, this is already unforgivable. Now go ahead and talk to me. And Spirit's trying to talk. Well, wait, I've already said this is unforgivable, but I'm open, talk to me. And you're not going to get anywhere. So it doesn't happen. So it's beyond human understanding, this concept of true forgiveness. It takes us to levels, to places beyond human comprehension, which I think is very cool. And this also shifts us beyond victimhood, doesn't it? When I really start to understand things, when I say to myself, well, so-and-so did this, but what can I learn from this? See, if I say I can learn something, I'm already breaking out of the mold of a victim. I also could say, this isn't the first time. Somebody betrayed me, let's say. It's not the first time, it's like the 5th time. So this is a pattern of who? Whose pattern is it? Whose pattern is it? Me, mine. So I need to forgive myself. So I'm not I'm not a victim. It looks like I am because these people did something really hurtful, and that's not really cool, but am I really a victim? No, because I did participate. That lessens it a little bit, doesn't it? Then what about, have I ever betrayed anyone on this planet in this lifetime? And just forget about other lives, right? We'd like to. Have I ever done this to anyone? Yeah, probably. Oh, so if it's a karmic repercussion, then are you a victim? You see, so just dismantle the whole notion that you are in any way possibly a victim. And again, I know all the games, I know all the stories, I know what's going to go on in the head of some. They're going to say, well, you're telling me just to forget the notion of being a victim, but there are some people I know that are just innocent victims. What if they're only 1 year old? Then clearly they are victims. Well, we can't even get into that, because that's just going to stir more judgment and anger of people. But The 1-year-old. How old are they again? 1. Really? Only 1? You're certain they've never lived any other lifetimes, have no lessons, have no nothing? None of us want to hear that. Hearing, abuses that happen to a dear loved one of mine, man. No, my head doesn't immediately go to the place of, wow, isn't that amazing how these things work themselves out and the person learned lessons they needed to learn? No, they looked like nothing but a completely innocent party. And by human standards, some people are. By human standards, but humans are screwed up. But by human standards, we can make things look like, like an innocent victim. But there's so many layers, man, so many layers. A person can say, I ran out of gas today. It's a new car. And we can say, how did that happen? Well, the meter said was full, but it was empty after I drove around. That's a victim because they bought the car, it's a new car. There's no reason the thing should be doing that. True, that looks like you're completely innocent. And forget karma and all that. Let's just start with that one, this example. So you say to that person, God, man, that's just a drag. You got to talk to that company and get a refund or something on that gas gauge. Yes, because I'm a victim. Yes, I agree. But wait a second, just curious. When was the last time you filled up the tank? Oh, about 3 months ago. Wait a second. Didn't it occur to you that you might be running out of gas? No, because it said full the whole time. Just because we are blinding ourselves to lessons we can learn or pieces we participated in doesn't mean it confirms we're victims. So it's just a very simplistic example. It's not going to be easy to apply that in really hard kinds of areas, but just do what you can. Just do what you can. Try to just break some of the concrete up, the concrete mind, as we say, that says there's only, one way to look at this and so forth, and it's, I'm a victim and all that. So forgiveness ends victimhood. Forgiveness ends patterns. Forgiveness ends limitations and limiting patterns, mind you. Forgiveness breaks up karma. Forgiveness erases stuff written in the book of life and the Akashic records that say that because we did this in the past, certain lessons have to come to us. Those pages are erased and there's nothing to support the case. Forgiveness releases guilt. Forgiveness releases shame. Forgiveness releases regrets. And so it brings peace. Because without those other things, something's going to fill that space. And we start feeling more and more peace. Forgiveness is not easy. It can be challenging. But as you get used to it, you start to realize, you know what? It doesn't matter if it's difficult. It feels so good and it seems so right. I'm just going to do it anyway. It's a kind of an interesting thing to describe this, but even our aura, chakras, trauma, lodges in our systems, our cells of our body. Forgiveness breaks that stuff up and releases the darkness. We have a dark cloud sometimes over us energetically in our aura. Forgiveness parts it and brings the sunlight in. Forgiveness brings like smiles to our organs that are sometimes clenched in hurt. Forgiveness washes our arteries more clean because stuff doesn't stick because we're not regretting or resenting. And the plaques in the colon and the arteries and wherever else, the plaque goes, dang, we don't have anything to stick to because no one is stuck in consciousness. So there's no signs and symptoms of stuckness, like sludge sticking to the arteries or the walls of the body in any way, shape, or form. So forgiveness, it just opens us up. Forgiveness is like having a spiritual version of everything you could ever do for yourself that's good. Massage, yoga, healthy eating, feeling like you've forgiven something can actually feel like you've just had one of those healthy, nutritious, multi-green stuff drinks, You drink that down, it's like, wow, you can sometimes feel quite a buzz from those kinds of things, wheatgrass and all those things. And forgiveness does that and more because it not only makes your head kind of go, wow, what's that? Aliveness. But it clears records and stuff that you can't even see or know about that we're going to haunt you, we're haunting you, and or we're going to manifest in your life somewhere. So forgiveness is not just a clearing of the past, it's a preventative of the future. It clears stuff. All the pains And the things we held on to, they start to fall away. And I'm noticing at this time, it's incredible to see the number of things that are falling away. I sit in, sort of like in contemplation of it, like, wow. Sometimes there's a period we're in where things seem okay in our lives. Of course, that's fine. Okay is not great, but okay is fine. And then we go through times when there's hurts and betrayals and all those weird things. Lessons, don't hate, learn lessons, and affirm the goodness in everybody if you can. Because the seasons keep changing, you see. So after the season of the harms, there's going to be goodbyes now. And the universe is going, well, listen, now that you finished this lesson and this lesson, are you cool with us letting go of those things? Oh no, I've got to stay stuck to them because I feel resentment, confusion, and so on. Then you get to keep them. But what if you're willing to let them go? What if you can say to the universe, yeah, and fall is a good time. Maybe the end of a month is a good time cyclically, to do that. If you want to do it 12 times a year. I always talk about it when New Year's comes. I talk about doing 12 days of Christmas and walking through the zodiac, and so that we're as conscious as we can in recreating our new life, our new existence, like a whole new, launching into a whole new level of consciousness. And but one thing after another, after amazing just endings, I'm noticing at this time. There's people, I don't hear from anymore, that kind of thing. That happens sometimes. The people I've really ever been closest to, it's kind of cool. I mean, it's amazing. I'm still sort of in touch, an ex-wife or whomever. But I don't think about it. I don't. Friends since elementary school we're still in touch and so forth. And it's not because it's one of those gratuitous human relationships. Those are worth letting go of. But it's because there's spirituality as the root, whether it's the guy from elementary school or the girl I was married to. There's a lot of spirituality to those relationships. So I don't keep them around just to have somebody to chat with or watch ball games or something. Not my thing, It's God in all things, love, life, spirituality in all things. So those are the people I'm most connected to. If people don't live that in a real kind of a way, and you can tell, if people are using you, or if people are talking the talk but not really living it, sometimes it's just kind of better to walk away and just, lovingly part ways. And so that happens, but never hate them. Never. Because they also represented a time when we were in that state of mind to be in the relationship or friendship or whatever with them. So we let that pass. And I see the symbols of that all around. All kinds of endings. I mean, there's so many I couldn't even bother to say right now. But all kinds of amazing endings. And I'm seeing it like cleaning out stuff of my own. Cleaning out projects, completing things is a way of saying goodbye to the past. Forgiveness applied is not just someone that upset you. Even when you let go of objects that represent old limiting patterns, it's a form of forgiveness. It's a goodbye. And it's pretty amazing. It's pretty astounding. And you become more spiritual, you become more like spirit, you become more a spirit when you're not carrying a bunch of baggage. Because spiritual beings are not dense. So don't be so dense. Forgive, let go, clear out stuff. Let it all move, let it all go. And that way we can grow. We grow in consciousness, our hearts expand, the bodies open up more. Just like nutrients, there's organs and glands going, wow, what is happening? It's this washing, of life and love. You guys know, if you know anything about my teachings, I've often taught about the dark night of the soul, and that's a really heavy time of cleansing. It's a difficult time. It's when lots and lots of things in your life seem to be going wrong. Hard, stuck, painful, but it's actually occasional. It's an occasional cycle for all of us. Well, a couple times a year anyway. I mean, a couple times a lifetime anyway. And it's still for the purpose of cleansing. So the more we clear, love, cleanse, forgive, the less the universe will do it to us. So, we're going to have to clear it anyway. You just get to do it the easy way or the hard way. Forgive, and there's less that you'll have to be brought through as a lesson to teach you to forgive. But that's also okay. If you want to do it the hard way, at least you're still going the same direction. You're still giving being given an opportunity to forgive. And just, watch it and observe and be kind of like wowed by how, when I set my mind to be able to be ready, willing to forgive, how just all the right things come sinking in, locking in to be worked on. Something you find that was in a drawer that you didn't see for a long time. Wow, a dream, What's the purpose of that person? And I teach this, and I mention it in the forgiveness book, but I teach this, and a lot of people never considered this. When I set my mind to forgive, 3 days later I have a dream about somebody. It's no accident. They entered my mind so that I could do further forgiveness work. Or I run into them unexpectedly. Or their image, face pops into my mind. What you need to do instead of, oh, that was weird, because that didn't help, did it? When you see them, you can start with, wow, that's weird, but then catch yourself and go, wait a minute. Wow. This is part of that forgiveness thing, isn't it? I set the intention and the right people are lining up. And it wouldn't do you any harm to credit Spirit for that. Because the more you can credit Spirit, it's not like credits like, like Spirit's like, oh, aren't I wonderful? Aren't I amazing the way I can hook these things all up? But when we can recognize and credit Spirit, it puts us in more alignment with Spirit to say, I know it's you. I know you're bringing the right people in, and thank you. Be gentle with me, Be gentle with me. I sometimes feel a little frail, man, when these people's faces come in. I get a little scared, but I know you won't give me more than I can handle, which is a compliment, because you brought up so-and-so yesterday, and wow. I could almost have said that was an impossible one, but yet, if you thought that I could handle it, maybe you know better than I do, and maybe that's quite a compliment that we've worked up to being able to work on that particular issue. So don't be surprised. Who comes up, what memories come up, what events. When you have a dream about middle school, it's already telling you you're going back to something to deal with in middle school. Whether it was a pleasant thing to absorb and go, wow, I'm really grateful, or a dark memory. You have something to do with it. There's homework there. So I pray that this has all made sense, and suggest that you just recognize how simple, not always easy, but how simple the process of forgiveness really can be. Do not, let people inflate it into something that seems so impossible. Try to keep it simple, Spirit.